Hi everyone, welcome to Samarth Academy's lecture series Xplain and Simple। इस सीरीज़ में हमारी ये आशा है कि हम आपको आज की डेट में जो भी इम्पोर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं, इम्पोर्टेंट हैपनिंग्स हैं जो चल रही हैं, उनको हम विस्तार में समझाएं और जो कि हमारे को काफ़ी सारे कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्ज़ाम्स में हेल्प करेगा। मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंटली एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एग्ज़ाम्स जहाँ पे सब्जेक्टिव आंसर राइटिंग रिक्वायर्ड होती है। तो इस सीरीज़ में हम यूजुअली इन वोक टॉपिक्स को डीक्लटर करेंगे और उसको हर एंगल से समझने की कोशिश करेंगे। तो चलिए चलते हैं। आज का हमारा टॉपिक है ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन। तो ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन, एज यू गाइस मस्ट नो, इज़ वेरी मच इन न्यूज़ दीज डेज एंड काफ़ी चर्चा है इसके बारे में। Not just in India but globally, many governments are looking to spend a lot of money uh, in developing infrastructure for green hydrogen, as it is being touted as the green fuel of the future. Okay, and this has been triggered by many reasons. Firstly, the whole uh, global warming imperative, and also the climate COP goals that the countries have agreed to uh, in the Paris Agreement. So these are a couple of the reasons why green hydrogen is becoming more and more important, and it is important. It is imperative for us to know exactly what this technology is all about. So let's move on and try and understand about green hydrogen. So, the world is in a unique and a necessary phase of energy transition. Necessary because our whole existence, our whole survival on this planet depends uh, upon how quickly we are able to shift from carbon or carbon intensive fuel technologies to carbon neutral technologies, where emerging low carbon technologies are replacing existing fossil fuel assets and shaping new energy paradigm. So this is green hydrogen is going to be at the heart of that new energy paradigm. There are certain sectors like industry and heavy transport that are hard to decarbonize using the current low or zero carbon technologies. The current technologies would be your solar technologies and your wind technologies, solar, wind, hydro, all these technologies, and even your battery stored EV technologies, right? Is not very applicable, or is not, it does not provide the kind of range that is required for a heavy transport industry or the industrial applications. So that is where green hydrogen becomes really important, and where it can supplement and complement these existing technologies. So let's learn about some key properties of hydrogen. Why hydrogen is the alpha fuel. So the key properties of hydrogen are, firstly, it is abundant. It's the most abundant element in universe. So scarcity is not a problem. It's a very versatile fuel source. It can be used in a host of applications. It has very high specific energy. If you look at the graph on the right, uh, it shows that, compared to the fossil fuels or the fuels that we are currently using, right? This provides energy storage or energy carrying capacity of almost three times that of the existing fuels. So that is what makes hydrogen so lucrative, right? And lastly, storage. Uh, Storage is not a problem with hydrogen. It can be easily stored for long periods of time. So this is where the existing the solar energy has a big problem or a big shortfall, is that it cannot be stored for a long period of time, and that is where the intermittency problem with respect to the existing renewables is created. That is the problem that hydrogen can actually solve. Let's move on to the next slide. So green hydrogen ecosystem, what is this whole ecosystem all about? So it consists of four phases: production, transformation, transport, and end use. Production is where the hydrogen is produced. Transformation, it may be needed to be transformed into some compound if it needs to be transported, because hydrogen is highly reactive. It does not exist and does not stay for long in its primitive form or its atomic or molecular form. It exists as compounds. Okay, and end use is where we need to use it. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide and understand these in detail. Production. If we talk about production, the hydrogen itself can be of uh, primarily three types. It can be black, brown, gray hydrogen. This is the hydrogen that is produced from fossil fuels. So it is not a clean form of hydrogen. This is not the kind of hydrogen that we require moving forward uh, in our in our drive to become carbon neutral, right? Blue hydrogen is a transition between black or gray hydrogen and green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is the cleanest form of hydrogen that is produced from uh, using renewable energy or clean energy, carbon neutral energy as the energy source. Blue hydrogen uses natural gas, which is a transition fuel. Okay, so basis on the kind of energy that goes into producing hydrogen, or it can be categorized into black hydrogen, blue hydrogen, or green hydrogen. Storage and transport. Storage and transport is again, as I told you, that hydrogen requires it to be stored and transported in form of compounds. That is why there is a different kind of an infrastructure that is required for hydrogen to be stored and transported over long distances. So, as far as storage is concerned, the kind of options that we have is storage tanks, chemical storage, and natural underground storage. Storage tanks, you can store it in form of some kind of a compound, uh, or you can have it as liquid hydrogen. But this is usually very expensive, and if you are to store very large amount of hydrogens, storage tanks is not that useful, right? Chemical storage is in form of storage in form of compounds such as liquefied organic hydrogen carriers, LOHCs, like methanol and toluene. And lastly, there is, if you really want to store huge amounts of hydrogen, there is a natural kind of a way where you can store it in form of in the salt caverns and salt domes uh, for large volume and low cost storage. But the problem with this kind of storage method is that it might not be available. It would be site specific, and there would be limited sites where this kind of storage will be available. Now, moving on, as far as transportation is concerned, you need the whole trucking, pipeline, tanker infrastructure, and that makes the whole hydrogen process difficult, because the kind of infrastructure that is required uh, is huge for hydrogen to become to be even used uh, at different sources. So that is where the whole infrastructure makes these things unviable at the present point of time, and also the fact that we don't have a clean energy ecosystem which could fuel green hydrogen at scale at this present point of time. End use, if we talk about the end uses, hydrogen, as we told you, is a very versatile fuel source. It can be used across industries and has a host of applications. So it can be used as a fuel for uh, your heavy trucking, or aviation, trains, maritime. These are all under research. This is where your current solar powered EV revolution falls short, because this is where the EV system becomes unviable, and hence hydrogen is being explored as the fuel of the future, or the transport fuel of the future for these segments. For power generation and for feedstock, it can be used. Similarly, in the chemical industry, it can be used to provide heat, because hydrogen, as you know, is has the highest known specific gravity. Uh, then it can be used in industries, especially the steel, steel, fertilizer kind of industries which are thought to be difficult to decarbonize. That is where hydrogen can play an important role. Okay. Now let's move on and try and understand that if hydrogen इतना अच्छा है अगर हाइड्रोजन और ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन, तो क्या प्रॉब्लम्स है आज की डेट में जो ये हाइड्रोजन हम यूज़ नहीं कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो let's first see what's written here. Green hydrogen produced using renewable energy currently accounts for only 0.1% of global hydrogen production. So hydrogen is nothing new, right? Black hydrogen, gray hydrogen has been there for industrial uses and has been powering our rockets and spaceships for decades. But that is not the hydrogen that we desire climate for our climate goals, right? And that the green hydrogen that we desire is only accounting for a minuscule production of hydrogen. Hydrogen itself is produced in very small quantities compared to fossil fuels and other fuels, and उसमें से भी जो आपका green hydrogen है, that is only 0.1% of that at present. Okay. Also, it's a powerful bet for solving the renewables intermittency problems and decarbonizing heavy industry that we have seen कि इसका फ़ायदा क्या है. बट प्रॉब्लम्स क्या हैं, चैलेंजेस क्या हैं हाइड्रोजन के आज की डेट में? तो फर्स्टली हाई कॉस्ट. Currently your green hydrogen is unviable. Cost of green hydrogen production is much higher than what is produced from fossil fuels, and renewable prices and economies of scale promise to make green hydrogen economical going forward. So presently we are at an unviable phase. The graph on the right also shows the same thing, that currently your green hydrogen price, if we look at it, is around almost twice that of the blue hydrogen that is produced, and blue hydrogen itself is some uh, you know around twice the price of the fossil fuels at this point of time. And it is believed that by the year 2030, because of you know decrease in the prices of the electrolyzer is the device that is required to uh, to split the hydrogen from its compound form into its atomic form, into hydrogen and oxygen, right? The process is electrolysis, hence uh, the device is known as an electrolyzer. So one, the prices of electrolyzers and the associated products that we need in this whole ecosystem is drastically coming down. Also, we are building a stockpile of renewable energy which will be required to fuel the whole hydrogen process. So this whole economies of scale is going to make this fuel. It is believed that this will make this green hydrogen viable, and it will compete with your fossil fuels and other fuel sources by the year 2030. And even from there, this whole price is expected to go down further, right? But presently unviable because of high costs. Then there is supply chain complexity. We have discussed the whole supply chain is highly complex. It requires different kind of infrastructure for storage and transportation, and huge amount of cost needs to be incurred there as well. And there are lastly the reason is energy losses. Green hydrogen loses a considerable amount of energy at every point of the supply chain, and approximately 30 to 35% of the energy is used to produce hydrogen. So 30 to 35% loss in the production stage. Then during the electrolysis itself, 15 to 25% loss is there, and in the storage and transportation there is another the total energy that is at play, around 40-50% of energy is lost. So there is a huge amount of energy loss in this whole process. Okay, now that we have understood what green hydrogen is, what are the challenges that the world faces with respect to transition to a green hydrogen economy, let's try and understand what are the developments that are happening at both the government level and at the corporate or industrial level with respect to green hydrogen. So first we are going to understand these things at a global level, and then we'll come to India and see what specific developments are happening with respect to India. So So I have talked about some key countries which have outlined their ambitious plans with respect to green hydrogen. The first is China. China is the largest hydrogen consumer at present, right? But bulk of its hydrogen is actually coming in form of gray hydrogen, and it strives to move to a green hydrogen economy, and it had launched its first hydrogen roadmap in 2016, leading it to have the and what it is saying is that it wants to have the world's third largest fuel cell electric vehicle fleet, the country becoming a pioneer in developing fuel cell trucks and buses. So just like the EVs, China has taken a dig into the transportation sector even with respect to hydrogen, and it it has an ambitious plan with respect to your fuel cell electric vehicle fleet. The fuel cell and electrolyzers are two key components, and uh, they perform different processes or contrasting their whole uh, so their functions are contrasting in the sense that electrolyzer through electrolysis is used to split up hydrogen into its atomic form, and when this whole hydrogen has been transported across the whole ecosystem and this chain, right, again this hydrogen needs to be used, and then a fuel cell is used basically to produce electricity from hydrogen, right? So uh, that's where a fuel cell and electrolyzer are important. I just thought that I should mention it. Then China's 5-year economic plan also recognizes hydrogen as one of the six industries of the future, and currently has no national strategy in place, but hydrogen features in 16 provincial and city energy strategies for China. So China is one of the first movers, but does not at this point of time have a national hydrogen policy. When we talk about EU, EU as a bloc strategy is heavily focused on emission-free green hydrogen, and its target is to install 40 gigawatts of renewable hydrogen electrolyzer capacity by 2030. Now, this is going to be a steep challenge considering their present capacity is somewhere around 1 or 1.5 gigawatts, but still a very ambitious plan. And Europe has taken to green hydrogen in a big way, right? And European Clean Hydrogen Alliance was launched to support investment and large-scale deployment of clean hydrogen projects in the EU. And we talk of Japan. Japan is another key country which has a really ambitious hydrogen plan. In 2017, just a year after China, Japan became the first country to formulate a national hydrogen strategy as part of its ambitious plan to become the first hydrogen society. So Japan was the first country to formulate a national plan with respect to hydrogen, and government is saying that government investment in hydrogen and fuel cell technologies totaling around 670 million in 2020. They have set up they have set ambitious targets, especially with respect to mobility. They are saying that we should have around 8 lakh fuel cell enabled vehicles and 900 hydrogen refueling centers. So again, they are also talking more about in terms of transportation. China, Japan both focus more on transportation. EU is primarily looking about diverse uses, and US is also passed a government law of Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021, so late to the party as compared to Japan, China, and EU. But a lot of private development of green hydrogen is actually happening in the US, right? It is led by the corporates. It contained a $9.5 billion dollar budget to boost clean hydrogen development, and their famous program is Hydrogen Outshot program, where they are saying 111. The idea is to reduce the cost of clean hydrogen to around $1 per kilogram in 1 decade. Currently, green hydrogen cost is somewhere around $5.5. So this needs to be drastically brought down to around $1, where it can compete with the other fuel sources. Okay. Now, moving on, let's try and understand there are certain global initiatives which are not government backed, but different private companies or the corporates are driving it, and in fact, there are JVs between many of these behemoths, but they are the initiatives which are catching the eye at this present time. Okay, let's try and understand a few of them. So firstly, US startup Green Hydrogen International, it had announced a 60 gigawatt renewable hydrogen project in Texas, right? And this is to be powered by wind, solar, the storage is going to happen in salt caverns. So it has the storage, cheap storage area is there, cheap, abundant supply of renewable energy from wind and solar is there, and it is intends to be the largest single site project in form of 60 gigawatt of renewable hydrogen capacity, right? And their end use is going to be that they want clean rocket fuel for Elon Musk's SpaceX, which is also based in Texas. Okay, so this is number one. Second is High Deal Ambition. The name of the project is High Deal Ambition. This is the European project in Spain, Eastern France, and Germany. So these three countries spread across three countries, and the project would be roping in 95 gigawatt of solar power to drive its 67 gigawatt of electrolyzers. So this is going to be the largest project in total, but it's not a single site project. It is spread across three different countries. So there are huge losses in the whole hydrogen process. So you take some 95 gigawatt of renewable energy and you produce around 65 gigawatt of electrolyzers, right? And that will feed into 65 gigawatt of electrolyzers. So this is again expected to create green energy across Europe, convey green energy across Europe at around 1.5 euro per kg before 2030. So their ambitious target is around 1.5 euros, and around 3.6 million tons of green hydrogen yield will be there from this process, from this project annually. Then the third important project of note is from Kazakhstan, and it is being developed by the German company called Swind Energy and Kazakh Invest, which is a Kazakhstan firm. It will utilize around 45 gigawatt of solar energy, and its production is going to be around 3 million tons of green hydrogen yield annually. Then now there is also a new project which is Western Green Energy Hub in Australia, and this is another project which is going to be powered by 50 gigawatt of wind and solar. So again, comparable to the size of the US project and the EU project. Talking about, these are really huge projects. 50 gigawatt is huge, right? Currently, so why these countries are able to take up uh, such kind of projects is also because they have built a certain kind of uh, renewable energy pool, uh, where they can actually feed 50 gigawatts of energy into a hydrogen project, right? So that is a precondition for hydrogen to be successful, right? So these are the four projects that I wanted to talk about. Now let's come on to the part of India and green hydrogen. What is happening in India with respect to green hydrogen? Let's figure that out. So firstly, why green hydrogen makes sense for India, right? Why we are talking about green hydrogen, and why there is a lot of talk of green hydrogen is, firstly, there is a decarbonization imperative. Just like other countries, we also want to switch to cleaner and greener fuels, and we have made our imperatives with respect to the Paris Agreement, which we need to uphold, and that is one reason. Another reason is energy security and reduction in the import bill. As you all know, India imports most of its fuel in form of oil, natural gas. Uh, Natural gas is much lesser, but if you look at crude oil, that is a major portion of our whole import bill and essential for energy security of India. If we can move to a green hydrogen, which is created in India itself, right? Then uh, we can actually hit two sparrows or two birds with the same arrow, right? We can lower our import bill, and we can ensure energy security. So this is a critical reason why the government and the corporates are looking ambitiously towards green hydrogen in India. And thirdly, uh, we have competitive advantage with respect to green hydrogen. India is one of the lowest. India has the lowest cost with respect to renewable production, and we are we have ambitious plans with respect to development of renewables, whether it is solar or wind. Uh, if you are covering the news, every day there is a new solar project coming up in one or the other part of India, right? And we have the lowest cost with respect to renewables, and hence we are going to be really competitive with respect to production of green hydrogen as well. So that is one an added reason why India should pursue, and India is pursuing green hydrogen. So if you look at this graph here, if we look at this graph over here, it shows how green hydrogen and India are going to be really competitive with respect to the rest of the world. If you look at rest of the world, their prices are going up, whereas India is going to be amongst the uh, lowest cost producers per kg for renewables and for hydrogen production. This is an estimated graph by Bloomberg, right? Okay, so now let's move on and let's try and figure out what are different initiatives that is happening. So firstly, let's try and understand what is the policy, how the government is trying to give a policy push to green hydrogen in the country. So firstly, there is a national hydrogen mission which is being run by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, MNRE. This mission was introduced by Prime Minister Modi on India's 75th independence on 15th August 2021, and the aim of this whole mission is that India should meet its climate change goals by using hydrogen as a clean energy source. Secondly, we should develop India as a global hydrogen hub because we have certain cost competencies with respect to clean energy and hydrogen production itself. And thirdly, the aim is to produce around 5 million tons of hydrogen by 2030. 5 million is again a big amount, right? So the NHM has identified pilot projects, infrastructure and supply chain research development, uh, and it had a budgetary or a financial outlay of around 800 crores for the next 3 years. Then we have a green hydrogen policy. This Okay, the second policy that we have with respect to green hydrogen is the policy from Ministry of Power. Uh, this is the green hydrogen policy. Again, this is not an both the policies. If we look at both the policies are kind of one is really aspirational. It talks about what are the aspirations associated with this whole policy, and this is a sector specific policy. So we are actually at this point of time missing on something that is going to be all comprehensive kind of a policy, right? So this is a policy that has been launched by Ministry of Power in Feb 2022 to boost the production of green hydrogen and green ammonia. So it basically talks about various kind of policy waivers or interest subventions that can be given to this industry so that this industry is boosted. So, for example, waiver on interstate transmission charges for a period of 25 years. Manufacturers of green hydrogen and ammonia shall be given, they would be given expeditious connectivity to grid on a priority basis, and ensuring ease of doing business, single portal for carrying out all the activities associated with these technologies or with these activities, and open access will be granted within 15 days of receipt of application. So the idea is to fast track this and fast track the projects so that there is an ease by which the business can be set up, right? Uh, Now moving on, let's try and understand what the corporates are doing with respect to green hydrogen in India. Okay, corporates and PSUs. So firstly, PSUs, the government-led public sector undertaking Indian Oil is at the forefront of green hydrogen revolution. So it is planning to set up India's first green hydrogen unit for Mathura refinery. Then it is also setting up a refueling station in Leh with NTPC, right? Similarly, some hydrogen and CNG hybrid fuel buses is also something that Indian Oil is working on, retrofitting some 50 odd CNG buses to test the feasibility of this technology. And then IISC, Indian Institute of Science, has recently developed an innovative technology to produce green hydrogen from biomass. So this was in use very recently, and India has a lot of scope with respect to the biomass thing as well, because of the agrarian structure that we have, right? Now let's move on to the corporates. What the corporates have in plan, and the three key important corporates that have ambitious plans with respect to green hydrogen have been Adani, Reliance Industries, and Acme Solar. So Adani is saying that it has a JV with Total Energies of France, where they are looking to jointly create the world's largest green hydrogen ecosystem. So it is not India's largest, but world's largest green hydrogen ecosystem. And what they are trying to do is they are going to invest over $50 billion. So not not just million, but $50 billion over the next 10 years in green hydrogen. And in the initial phase, they are going to develop hydrogen production capacity of 1 million ton per annum before 2030. So India's target was 5 million. उसमें से 1 million is going to come from Adani itself as per this plan, right? Then Acme Solar Holdings, they have also identified uh, they have identified the site for their project in Tamil Nadu, and they are setting up a green ammonia production facility in Tamil Nadu at an investment of around $6 billion. And the proposed project, where there is going to be a 5 gigawatt electrolyzer solar plant, and sorry, 5 gigawatt solar power plant and 1.5 gigawatt electrolyzer, and around 1 million ton of ammonia production capacity annually. And lastly, Reliance, it has just outlined its plan as of now, and it's highly ambitious, as ambitious as Adani, but it has not crystallized the plan. It has not given the fine print of the plan. And Mukesh Ambani has also announced that they plan to invest somewhere around $75 billion in renewable infrastructure, including the generation plants, storage, and transportation. Right. So this is what is happening in India at present with respect to green hydrogen. Now let's try and understand what are going to be the next steps if we want the whole green hydrogen ecosystem to be successful in India and globally, right? Firstly, if we talk about India itself, right, we need a detailed roadmap that focuses on all aspects of green hydrogen to supplement the National Hydrogen Mission. National Hydrogen Mission is talking about everything from a bird's eye view, right? And green hydrogen policy is very sector specific. So we need something that we need a roadmap that focuses on all the aspects, right? Then we need intervention on the supply side to reduce the cost of green hydrogen to $1 per kg, right? So whether it is in form of subsidies or in form of interest waivers, but this is the kind of intervention that we require. Some of it is already happening. Thirdly, require a manufacturing capacity totaling around 25 gigawatts by 2030 for electrolyzers. That is the key component here. Electrolyzers can be exported as well, right? So it's first let's look at domestic production for domestic use, and then maybe we'll move towards exports, right? And initiate a green hydrogen standards and labeling program. Again, it's very important because the green hydrogen needs to be segregated, or must be, it should be identifiable with respect to the other kind of hydrogen sources. And it can be tricky because it is uh, very difficult to understand the origin at the end use, right? That is why green hydrogen labeling is very important. And lastly, construct an interministerial governance structure for this whole thing, so that there is, because uh, this is going to cut across ministries. Therefore, an interministerial governance structure is essential, so that there are not no delays because of the bureaucracy and red tape. Okay. So, guys, this was it from my side with respect to green hydrogen. I hope you found this lecture useful. And if you did find it useful, please like and subscribe our videos. It will give us a lot of confidence going forward in making such useful content for you. Thank you and have a nice day.